I have to do this story because the story is rather shocking, horrific even to think about it. And I'm going to ask you a question at the very end of this. The question is going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you squeamish. My wife did not even dignify it with an answer because I suspected she knew what the answer was and she did not want to say it aloud. But I will ask you this question. Now, you will have to answer just between your lips and God's ears. But I do want you to answer the question. Germany, for like 30 years, sent homeless children to live with pedophiles. And it did this believing that the man-boy love connection would effectively create a happy, stable home between the child and the child rapist. Welcome. Yeah, that heavy. To the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This story is a bit grimy. Nevertheless, I'm going to cover this story because I am blown away by this story. Our producer, Michelle, found this story. Well, at least my producer currently. There is a shakeup going on at the very least in the short term for Fault Lines. And so I will be taking over Fault Lines for, at the very least, the next few shows for this week. Going forward, I don't know necessarily what is going to take place going forward. My preference will be to cover both Fault Lines and to cover Political Misfits, both shows. My team, I don't know how they feel about it. They're probably talking behind my back about it, but they will come to their own conclusions. They didn't seem to necessarily have that particular point of view. So, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, you will see this face on Fault Lines. But she found this story. And so I wanted to cover the story because I thought it was just mind-blowing. I'll just read it. It's not very long. Starting in the 1970s, psychology professor Helmut Kindler conducted an experiment. Homeless children in West Berlin were intentionally placed with pedophile men. The men would make especially loving foster parents, Kindler argued. I'm going to give the child to the child rapist because the child rapist loves children. A study conducted by the University of Hildesheim has found that the authorities in Berlin condone this practice for over 30 years. The pedophile fathers or foster fathers even received a regular care allowance. They were even paid for this. God, that's mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing. I am going to give you to a rapist, and I'm going to pay the rapist because that rapist is extra special and tender with the person and the kid that he potentially may rape. Helmut Kindler was a leading position in Berlin's Center for the Educational Research. He was convinced that sexual contact between adults and children was harmless. Berlin's child welfare offices and the governing Senate turned a blind eye or even approved of the placements. Several years ago, two of the victims came forward and told their story. Since then, researchers at Hildesheim University have plowed through files and conducted interviews. What they found was a network across educational institutions, the State Youth Welfare Office, and the Berlin Senate in which pedophilia was accepted, supported, and defended. Kindler himself was in regular contact with the children and their foster fathers. He was never prosecuted. By the time his victims came forward, the statute of limitations for his actions had expired. This has also thus far prevented his victims from getting any compensation. Understand what's taking place. This was taking place all the way back in the 70s. And so the victims who came forward, well, at the point at which they came forward, the statute of limitations had passed. So basically, the people who were involved in this pedophilia ring, there were no charges associated with it. They even, again, got compensated by the state for this. Are you a pedophile? Yes. All right, good. We have this homeless kid that we want to give you. Are you okay with taking that? It's a burden, but are you okay with taking it? It's tough. It's tough, but I'll do this for the state. I'll do this for the state. Okay, and we'll pay you for this. Okay, thank you very much. They may even feel pretty good about themselves. Fucking this kid for the state. Think about how sick that is, though. That's so mind-blowingly sick. The researchers found that several of the foster fathers were high-profile academics. They speak of a network that included high-ranking members of the Max Planck Institute. Oh, don't say that. Berlin's Free University and the notorious Odenwald School in Hesse, West Germany, which was the center of major pedophilia scandals several years ago. It has since been closed down. Here's a question. Is it possible, to any degree that's possible, that what you had was just a pedophile ring posing as a research study? Seeing as many of these people were academics and that the research study was being done by an academic, you're not the least bit curious, or you're not necessarily, it doesn't raise an eyebrow that many of the people who are getting this were basically implicated in the crime itself. I guess I'm making the point that basically you've had a bunch of academics, and those academics were pedophiles. And this guy said they were running a research study. Is it possible that people within the context of his own class, he was giving kids in order to have sex with, and they were just calling it a study? I'm saying it wasn't a study, it was just a pedophile ring. Berlin authorities have vowed to shed light on the matter. The Kindler experiment. I find this to be just the mind-blowing study or mind-blowing thing that these guys did. Question. Would you, if given the option of being homeless, hungry, in the rain and the cold, subjected to the elements, going through trash cans for food for the least bit of sustenance that you can get your hands on, would you prefer to that or to be raped by an older man? My wife cringed at that. She cringed at that because I think her answer probably would have been, I think the rape. The notion that you're putting somebody in a situation where it's either their needs and their vulnerabilities, meaning going hungry, going and being exposed to the elements, or being raped by somebody, is abominable. And the notion that these guys were doing this under the auspices of a study is just fucking sick. I understand that this took place in the 70s, and I understand that you can't necessarily go after these people now because of the statute of limitations. I am not opposed to changing the statute of limitations to go after these people. There should be some level of compensation, seeing as the state gave it, again, tacit approval. 30 years you guys did this. 30 years. If you were given an option between yourself, your lips to God's ears, which one would you choose? By the way, it wasn't necessarily a situation where, like, to be honest, I don't know the entire case. I just know they gave homeless kids to grown men, believing that the child that was about to be raped perpetually for X number of years was okay. And that the rape in that was an artifact, but not necessarily something that was the main feature. As somebody who grew up and was molested as a child, this story is astonishing, especially when you find out that this was to some degree allowed by the state. Like, share, subscribe. I'm going to need a shower after this story.